makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Kristen Thomasino. She is an author and founder of Thomasino Media LLC and Buddytown Consulting LLC. Good morning, Kristen. Thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me. You have done so much in this world, and your story, it just touched me just reading the part that I read about you, and also the healing process, and then how you take that. You didn't take it in the wrong way, but also you take it, you turn it to something fantastic. So I guess I want to know the journey. Let's just start it with the journey. It's just amazing. I love what you're doing.
Sure. So, life is kind of full of adventure and also unexpected events, right? And, you decide kind of in life, like I believe, what your, adventures are going to be based on, whatever it is that fascinates you. And that's one of the things that I've appreciated about, being where I've been able to, create opportunities in the country and then just work with people in my career, as a data scientist. And so I really, started out years ago, working in financial technology, and that was where I built my career. And we started, working with customers and finding ways to get it easier to just get business done. And, there's, a thing in our world, right? There's so many languages, right? There's how we, communicate verbally, and then there's mathematical languages, right? There's computer languages. There's all kinds of love languages, right? So one of the things that I love about my work is that when I was younger, I had chronic illness, and so I had started getting chronic migraines and neurological symptoms when I was like 15 years old,
Wow.
and that's pretty impactful. Like at that age when you're trying to figure out just life,
Sure.
Um, so, I had a lot of different things kind of impact how I felt. And I was an athlete at the time. And then I saw my body, decline for periods. And my dad, luckily for me, right, he's a lieutenant colonel, former in the military, in the army, and he's also a doctor. And so, when I started feeling bad, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to take care of my daughter, right? And so, he happened to be, a Legion of Merit winner, though, and also a ROTC scholar for the Johns Hopkins program at age 16. And so he got me to specialists very quickly, and this was in the 90s. And so we tried like 20 different drug treatments before the time I was 20.
Wow.
And yeah, and I had a lot of different things happening, right? Like I had issues with smells and with food that I was eating and other kinds of different things, right? And then I had, muscular weakness and tiredness and exhaustion and headaches. And so, it's fascinating to me because, I think the universe, puts people in our path, right? For different reasons. And in my case, here's this crazy story, right? My dad, he's a Legion of Merit winner, and for the military, and so he did some special projects to help, protect our country, and the troops, and it turned out, that he ended up, working with some pretty interesting people. Well, later in life, unexpected events happen, and I got through this period of time when I was younger by trial and error, figuring things out, and then learning how to manage my disability. Basically, having headaches all the time, and sometimes having symptoms that would come up if I ate things, or if I was in certain environments, or things were
Wow.
too loud for me, right? And so by figuring these things out, I was able to, start to kind of build and work in regular life. But I also moved, and I was in different environments, and different environments affected me differently, which is kind of fascinating. And
Hmm.
so later in life, though, I ended up being in Charlotte, and I built a career in financial technology with a wonderful organization there called Avid Exchange, and I was number 12 employee, so I started in 2005, and we were like explaining to people at that time like what the internet was, right? We're like, seriously, you can put your data on the internet and it'll be safe with us, and they're like, what are you talking about? And so, I went through this period of working with these really remarkable individuals and a fantastic CEO, Michael Prager, who literally coached us and invested in lots of cool types of mentors. So I got to play all these cool roles in this organization, learn, Scrum Master, Agile development, quality assurance testing. Later, I came into sales and customer service, and I just
Oh
love
my
sales and helping
goodness.
people. Yeah, they just really invested in me. I always told them, I'm like, I'll show up. If you give me a chance, I'll show up. And I remember that because when I was younger, I always just wanted to be like everybody else when I was sick. I was like, why does everybody else get to feel okay and I don't? And I just wish that I could do anything on some days. I was able to, build a wonderful career there. I've worked with fantastic, brilliant people are still there rocking and rolling and others. And we solved lots of problems. And unfortunately, I fell down the stairs in 2016 in January. It was an accident with my dog. I mean, literally. He was at the top of the stairs with me, and I used to not let him stay at the top of the loft when I would leave because when he was little, and I would put a little gate up. And so I called him, and I'm like, "Come on, Gumbo, let's go down." And I looked, and he usually would come down on the right side of me, but instead he was standing right on the first step, just wagging his tail, looking up at me. And so I stepped over him and I had a coffee cup in my hand. And so the coffee cup went flying and I tried to grab the railing because I missed a step. And then I just went all the way down on my back and tailbone and everything. So it really like, affected me massively. And we didn't really understand kind of initially I had a lot of adrenaline going. I was on tour and I about to leave the next day and I did. And like, I just always kind of got a lot of stuff going on. So I was kind of pushed through because I'm used to having migraines and I'm like, whatever, I'll take, I know I need to ice and chill out. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I broke anything, right?
Right.
But
That's what we said.
right. And so, I went and I did a show and I was with, my team and we had this huge pitch. So it was like super important. There was like 7 people and we were talking to like 100, salespeople that were going to promote us. So it was like, oh, we can't mess this up. So, um, I didn't feel really that great when I came back. And so I went, to the ER and they like, did some scans on my foot, put me in a boot, right? But they didn't scan everything else. And so I had to go to other doctors and my pain just kept continuing, right? I did the usual, take some over the counter stuff and chill out, right? Get off my feet, you know what I mean? But it wasn't going away, and I was having like a lot of nerve pain and like all over and like shooting pain. And then I was having spasms and, other types of issues that really started to affect all of my day to day. My strength and other things were starting to be affected. Um, you know, so when that happened to me, just like anybody else, you're trying to figure out, who do I go to and what do I do? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so a lot of people, and this is what I think is, really big, challenge in our society is that when these things happen, I mean, it's hard. Like your body and your brain and everything is hurting, so it's hard to make decisions, and to think, not emotionally sometimes also, right? And then you're just trying to figure it out, and so in any case, I was super lucky, right? I, helped build this great organization, and we ended up having fantastic benefits. So I
Ooh.
used my benefits, right? And how many people work in the workplace and you just keep going and going, and then you just don't use your benefits, right? Like, come on, there's a lot of diehards out there. I know there are. It's great, that you love the mission, but you gotta, use the benefits,
The
right?
benefits.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used those benefits and I was able to find lots of specialists, even second opinions, right, that helped me as I kind of went through. And, you know, unexpected events, I'm still trying to figure things out. They're doing all these tests on me to see, specialized tests, which were great because they happen rapidly, right? But then I had all of a sudden, in the beginning of September of 18, end of August, I had right side weakness that developed after I had felt something in my neck when I was on a personal trip. And then when I came home one day, I ended up passing out in my bathroom and having a seizure. And when I woke up, things were very different. I felt extremely different. And when I woke up, I had right side weakness, and that was permanent for quite some time. So,
Wow.
yeah, that ended up staying with me for 9 months. And I started immediately, going to a PT. And I was so lucky to have a physical therapist because the neurology offices and the specialty offices are so overloaded in certain markets. It's hard to even get specialty care. I was lucky because even at that time in 2018 and 19, they had a system set up online where I could communicate with my special doctors and my nurse, right? So I could write
Right.
them and talk to them, which was amazing. And that's why technology in the future of not just being in an office, right, is efficient, right, for healthcare and for patients. So I had my great nurse Jenny who would rescue me, and I'd be like, Nurse Jenny, please help me, and Nurse Jenny would get to Dr. Chipman, for me. And but anyway, I ended up having this great best friend, right? Lucky me, here again, here's this universe. Her and her partner own a physical therapy practice in outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and they do lots of specialty care. And so I didn't know what to do. I was like, Dr. Tatum, can you please help me? And I went into her and I had been friends with her for, well over a decade, 13 years at this point. And so she'd known me a long, long time. And I was at her wedding, with her and her wife in the video. And I came in there and, when I saw her, I was 210 pounds because I hadn't been
Wow.
able to move and to exercise. And so I gained like 70 pounds with what happened and then with different, eating things that were happening with my gut health also. And so when I went in with her, I had so many spasms and things that kept going on. I was on muscle relaxers all day long, to keep things under control. But that really wasn't helping, at this stage. It was
That's
not
a
like kind of
lot.
minimal. So, when that's happening to a patient, basically your energy is being just sucked away from you every day, right? I
Pretty
couldn't stop
much.
the tremoring in my hand, right? And so you just keep going and going. And then you have weakness. And so, this side of my body, my other side is just straining and straining, right? To help, right? We started doing a very unique therapy, which is, a really big premise of why I decided to do this social good mission in all my books. We started doing this therapy, intramuscular stimulation. And I remember like sitting in my friend Dr. Tatum Robinson's office and thanking in her house, excuse me, and celebrating with her when she got her certification years before, right? Be like, cool, you're gonna put needles in people, awesome, you know. Um, and then here I am, like years later, coming in, and I'm like, can you please help me, inside. So she did, and I trusted her, and she's like, it's gonna hurt, and I just want you to understand, Kristen, I've got to be upfront with you. It's gonna take you multiple years to get back your abilities and to get to like an athletic level again, with where you are. So I need you to understand that. So she told me that, and she told me, make sure that you have every single health role filled, right? I'm not your
Hmm.
mental health. I'm not your neurologist, right? I'm not your rheumatologist. I'm not your blood work, right? You have to have those people. And I said, yeah, I got pretty much all of them, so I'm ready to go there. And that's important, for my story because I write about that in my book, Discipline, Rigor, and Accountability. And I really start my book, my big book, for mature audiences only because of the type of content. It's pretty heavy. Where I'm going through this process, right, with her, and we're starting the needles, and I documented everything that was happening to me. One, because I always kept kind of like records and journals of how I've been feeling because I've been a patient for so long, and kept track of, different things that bother me. But this became, I really had to look at everything because it was like, I went to her for a couple of months then for a lot of physical therapy too to see if I could, get my abilities back. And it wasn't really coming back. I moved up maybe like 5 pounds in like 6 months. So it was like, holy crap,
Wow.
So when you think about that, at that stage, I went to some specialists, right? Because we're like, holy crap, okay, it's still not coming back. My neurologist sees me in January and he's like, let's go to some, I've known some specialist rheumatologists, right? Also, your skin and other things are starting to exhibit other characteristics potentially of other disease sets. And he's like, I think that you may have a disease called fibromyalgia, a condition. And I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. And it's really interesting because my father had actually started talking to me about it, that last year too, because he was like, there's something wrong with why you're not healing. That doesn't make sense. Like, we don't see this, they're not, picking up on it. So anyway, we get to this point and I start to get more specialized testing. And this is, if we've got to talk about serious issues in our country right now, right? Entrepreneurship, we've got COVID testing out the wazoo, right? People charging $250 a test. Excuse me, that's ridiculous. Especially when there's comparable
Yes.
tests at $10. But pardon me, that is absolutely ridiculous. We could be having autoimmune disease tests, the tests that show us all these different 100 plus different conditions which are really affecting people. And it turned out, right, that when I got to these people and we tested for lots of things, right, and this is why testing has to be affordable too, right? These are pretty
Yeah.
in-depth tests to look and see, nutritionally where I was deficient, to look and see markers for autoimmune disease and other nervous system conditions, stuff that happens. So if you could imagine, I go in, I get these tests, and I end up being positive for autoimmune disease markers for SLE, and I was speckled. And so that's for like lupus potentially and sojourns. And so this is when your cells start to, attack themselves. And I had gotten so weak, right, that that's what was happening to me, right? Because my pain had gone on for such a long period of time, a number of years at certain levels of intensity, plus certain environmental inputs that, that's why I started to just go "Phoop," like that pretty rapidly. Um, so what we ended up figuring out, though, which was pretty cool, was that, okay, so I have these markers. Now I know something, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Somewhere to start with.
right. And so what I loved about my doctor, okay, number one, Dr. Chip, here's the crazy universe. So let's swing back to my father, okay? My dad got inspired to join the military because my grandfather served in World War II at D-Day, Day 5. And he was a machine gunner, and he's also a Bronze Star for Valor winner, as well as a Purple Heart and a bunch of other medals. Um, and so my dad joined because he was like, we have got to save the world. My grandfather helped after World
Aww.
War II with the refugees and others. And so he wanted to join, but he joined, on the medical side, right? Because he wanted to do things differently.
Right.
And so a doctor that worked on his mission was a neurologist, and this neurologist was also Dr. Chipman, but his name was Marty. And it turns out, my dad one day and I are talking, and he's like, "What's the name of your neurologist?" I'm like, "Oh, Dr. Chipman." He's like, "Dr. Chipman?" He's like, "No, it couldn't be Marty. Marty would be like too old. He's he's as old as I am, now." I'm like, no, he's not an old man. Like he's a young man, like you're not old until you're 90 anyway, Dad. But and so it turns out that it's his son, right, Joseph Chipman. And anyway, so my neurologist, recommends all this stuff, and I tell him that I'm like, oh yeah, our dads worked together on the thing, and they won a medal. That's the one my dad won the medal on, the Legion of Merit for, with your dad.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, he said, he ended up sending me over to another resource, and we didn't discover this connection until way later, right? But he sent me over to another resource, Dr. Withers, right? And Dr. Charles Withers is a specialty rheumatologist. And if I gotta talk to, folks about markets for, like, getting to the right doctors quickly, rheumatologists help with these autoimmune diseases, right? And they help with
Right.
specialty conditions. And Dr. Withers is, oh my gosh, is he just the kindest person, and man, it's just so gentle, right, with his approach. But what I love about him too is he's tough, right? He tells you, what's really happening and the depth of it, right, and what you're facing. But then he had a program for me, right? And that's what Dr. Chipman liked about him too, is that he had this program for fibromyalgia patients to learn new skills, right, to help manage the body and to see if, that would, help, right? And he paired you up with basically a vocational rehabilitation specialist. Um, so you use that program, and he basically told you, if you aren't going to do my program at a point, then you're out. And I'm like, okay. I like doing programs. I'm a sales leader, by trade. And I mean, I do different programs and I led, different things. So I'm like, yeah, I love it. I like making calls. By the way, like I want to work on myself, like I don't feel good.
Hmm.
So what I loved about them is we also looked at a couple of different drug treatments at the same time, right? Because I was a working professional. And so we tried doing different things to see if certain things would work for me or would not work for me. And unfortunately, like one of the treatments didn't work for me, right?
Oh.
And so in the summer of 2019, my body went into full body weakness, and I ended up suffering from severe brain fog. And I had to learn how to speak and count and work on my words and all kinds of things and all my basic
Oh.
skills again. Um, and so, unexpected events happen, and I realized as I was going through with my PT, with the results that we were getting, as well as then, with the drug treatment and what was happening, because I was talking to my teams all the time and my nurse, right, writing how I was feeling psychologically and physically, which was amazing, by the way, service-wise, from a model. Um, but I told him, like, it's not working. I gotta, go off. I'm still having, huge levels, 7, 8 level pain. You know what I mean? 7 level pain. And so when I went off that medication, unfortunately, my body just went, like, had a really hard time. And so, I couldn't hold my body up for longer than an hour. Um, I had problems with my neck, particularly on my right side. So I had a hard time breathing and with my lungs. And so I had to do like humming and singing exercises every single day to build up my lung capacity and things. When I walked, it always felt like I was walking on glass. And there'd be like, taking steps would be,
Tips.
super difficult. So I had to, take Uber. Thank God for car service. I'd get that to go to therapy, and those people were great. And they'd drive me to Dr. Tatum's office, and I'd go into her pain dojo, and that's what it is. And my advice to patients, most people just get to a point where you kind of lay there and you're like, I can't handle it. I don't want to feel anything else, because you're literally being shocked by your nervous system over and over again. And I had gotten to a point where I couldn't sleep like longer than an hour a night, like in hour intervals, because I just kept getting shocked by my system and or feeling sharp pains in my brain or my body. And then because I had gut health issues as well, with eating, I got down to where I couldn't eat more than 500 calories a day for multiple months because of what happened with my body. And I was vomiting pretty much every single day, like multiple times, sometimes 15 to 10 times a day, because of the reactions that were happening then in my body. Um, so it got really, challenging, but I kept making goals, and I had basically knew what was coming, right? Because of the conversations that I had had and the potential, right, that could happen,
Right.
right, with somebody like me. And so I had made some plans, right, where I had basically, kind of left myself clues and saved a ton of money of my own and invested it years before so that I knew if anything happened to me that I could take care of myself potentially. And so I did those things. I had like a great law of attraction journal, wonderful philosophy by freedommastery.com. They're amazing. But I did that since 2017, and by having that journal by my bedside basically every single day, I'd have it right there. I'd flip it open and it would center me because in there I'd write about, what my goals were, what I was trying to do, what happened the day before, and these things like my little notes, right? And just by doing that as a brain fog patient, right? That's how you start to rebuild neural connections. And I, was partnered with my team, the rheumatology team, Dr. Wither's team at Integrative Rheumatology. And he had a great vocational rehabilitation specialist paired with me, a coach, right? And her name is Letitia Williams. And oh, she's so sweet to me. And I'd be like, I don't know, like, what does that mean? Like, she'd say things to me, I'm like, I don't know. Could you say that again? And they're like, what? You know? And so she was cool, and I remember I'd cry in there, and I'd be like, oh gosh,
Oh.
I feel like so stupid now. Like I don't remember things the way I used to. I don't talk the same, like, um, but having somebody like that every 2 weeks, right, that was working with me saying, okay, here's some goals. We're going to work on these things. You're going to practice these things, right? You're going to use these tools, right? And then we're going to talk about it, for these set periods was really helpful. And it changed it for me because it wasn't, I want to be empowered, right? I want to learn how to, control what was happening to me. And if I could change my body, right? And one of the things that we started talking to my team about was I also started researching with my brother. He's like kind of like crazy reader. He's brilliant. He wanted to save me, literally. Um, so he started to research, every night all kinds of things when he'd be done with his job. And so he was my research partner, and we ended up finding nutrition and other things that I was lacking because I was so deficient for so long. You could see a response happen to me when we added certain things to my diet. Um,
Hmm.
and when I did certain other behaviors, right? Like going outside and getting sunlight, and other types of things that started to have impacts on my body. Um, I found other things though, right? Like I found like mechanical tools because, the other thing is about that's unique about my case is I could go to Dr. Tatum once a week and she could put these needles in me and I'd be like, Dr. Tatum, my hands are like numb. I feel pins and needles. And she'd just be like, "Tuff, tuff, tuff," and I'd be like, oh, it stopped. Cool.
Are you
And then I
serious?
go my day. And then I'd be like, Dr. Tatum, I'm having major migraine today. Oh my gosh, the pain, it's killing me. And she'd be like, come here. And she'd be like, doof, doof, doof. And I'd be like, like, I don't know, I feel better. Weird. And then the other crazy thing, and now this is the one that was always so amazing to me because I had a hard time breathing for so many months and months and months and months. And it took me a really long time to rebuild all of that. Um, I'd come in and people who have my condition, you can get rib cage pain and get spasms in your rib cage and other things. So then it feels like you're having a heart attack or you can't breathe because you're like everything's like so tight. And so, I go in, I'd be like, during that time, especially in the summer, I was having a lot of abdominal and other many kinds of issues because of what was happening. And I would go in and I'd be like, Dr. T, I've just been having such a hard time breathing the last few days. And she'd be like, okay, turn over. And I'd be like, and I'd be like, oh, I can breathe, you know? So that therapy was really important, right? Because it was releasing these muscle knots. She would put it right into a muscle knot that I'd have, and it would directly release it, right? And so what was happening is the blood flow would then be allowed to return to that area. And, if you think about it, it doesn't matter what patient type you are, everybody needs blood flow. If you don't have blood flow, what happens? Your
We both
tissues die,
know.
right? Right,
Yeah.
your tissues die, right? Or they don't perform correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you look at all these different disease sets too, my brother and I started studying all kinds of conditions to look for crossover trends. Now, I'm a data scientist and he's a data scientist too, right? He's a mega data scientist because he can, do all kinds of crazy things too with the information. So, but what's fascinating is we saw these trends, right? So I started to apply other types of learnings to my case, technology, other scientific principles. And, one of the things was like mechanical blood flow. I hated not being at home, being like this, being spasm, feeling like this. I'd be super cold, like icy cold, right? And you'd be like miserable, and you'd be like, God, I wish I could have a massage therapist here. I need somebody to help me release this, right? Or so the only thing I could have to release it if I don't have a massage therapist to release it is myself trying to do it. Well, I don't have hand strength because I'm so weak now. So now what, right? Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll take a pill. Well, what's that really doing? You
Nothing.
know? Right. And so I'm numbing the pain, but I'm not dealing with the mechanical issue. And the mechanical issue is that I needed blood flow, right? And so I got these tools, and I found these cool tools, right? And this is all in my book, Discipline, Rigor, and Accountability, where I find percussion massage and different things, and I start doing this every day, basically jackhammering my muscles loose. And it hurts like hell in the beginning because I have a condition, where my skin got to a point where I developed aldina, which is where basically you kind of have it hurts to touch the skin. Like,
Wow.
it hurts a lot. Well, I don't feel that way anymore. But what's crazy is, so I had to do this, right? A lot of patients are like, oh, I don't want anybody to touch me. It'll hurt me. It'll hurt me more, right? And I'm like, it will hurt you. It's going to hurt you a lot more. But what's going to help is that when you get that blood flow going again, you're going to start to get healthy tissue again. And that's what I learned in my case. And by having these home tools, as well as some other things that are unique, like red light and other types of technology that we looked into and tried in my case, plus nutritional differences, I started to get gains. And this was in Charlotte. And so my teams were all like the PT, the neurologist, my rheumatologist. Everyone was like, wait a minute, this is something's going on with you, right? And so they said, well, hey, you have a really unique case. Do you think you could move environments because this could be affecting you here too? And I had asked them about that also because I had been reading in lots of different cases that people who lived in certain environments had worse pain. And I grew up in the South, right? So I grew up in Florida, and then I was in North Carolina,
Oh.
right? Humid, right? Super
Mm-hmm.
balmy there. You gotta wear linen. You gotta wear linen, it's hot. So and so anyway, so I made a plan to try a new environment and to move west. And because I had started to make some pretty significant progress, my brother moved from New York out, to California too. And I was like, cool, like I want to move to LA, but find a different area, that I could heal. And we had been looking at different things. And so I ended up basically making a goal to be strong enough to drive to Los Angeles, California. So I had to get strong enough to hold my body up longer than an hour, right? And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, so I had to get to 4 hours. I got to 4 hours and I could lift a certain amount of weight, right? And then I was allowed to leave. And so I did that. I sold my house. I got rid of tons of things, and I decided that I was going to quit my career and record the things that were happening to me and document it for documentary series and books because I was making progress that other people hadn't. And then when we were researching all these different conditions, we also came across like a lot of very interesting information about how many people, tens of millions, that are sick in this country with these different diseases and these clusters also that were popping up. And this was already in the data in 19. And so something seemed off to me. And being a data scientist and working with financial data and large scale programs, I'm like, wait a minute, you know? And so I made this commitment. I said, okay, I'm going to capture this. I'm going to try to live as healthy as possible, do the things that I need to, try different treatments that I can get access to in California, and live in a very unique, clean environment. And for me, I needed some super, dry environments for a period of time. And so anyway, I found this great ranch, right? I made it across the country, me and my little dog Gumbo, my rescue dog. I took a ton of pictures of him and I and other stuff, right? Like going through this and filming for the documentary. But I ended up like generating like a whole series about him and I too, and a children's series about us driving across the country together in our little adventures. But in any case, we get here to California, and I ended up finding this cool Airbnb, amazing, but 225-acre ranch, and it's up in Malibu in Coral Canyon, and this cool lady, Geraldine Gillian, who is this amazing local restaurateur who owns, a 30-year restaurant on Main Street, Santa Monica. She's up there. She owns a bunch of cool real estate. She's got this beautiful ranch at the top of this canyon, and you could go hiking around all these trails. And
Oh.
she has all this different kind of. She had like a time, like a couple of different places that different types of living spaces and sizes you could do. So I lived out in this kind of like wilderness area that she had, and set up out there in one of her units. And I did this, experiment out there for like 71 days, and then I stayed on her ranch for 17 months, just training as a whole. When eventually I moved into the main house and took a wing of the house over for my stuff and for my businesses and things. But it was a fantastic experience. And I did a lot of really cool things. Like I did cold therapy, like I'd go literally in the Pacific Ocean in Malibu, and I'd go in for 15 to 30 minutes standing in the cold water so that I would be in the 60 to 55-degree water. And that was actually doing, things that were positive for my body. It's taking my inflammation down. Um, so I did a lot of training. I did a lot of healthy eating, natural stuff, and I documented all of this. And that's really like kind of why I'm here today, because if I
Wow.
could get strong again like this, and I started, after my time at the ranch, I wanted to test myself. So, I moved and I live out in San Pedro now and by the water. And but I started doing these social good missions. And I worked pretty much in social good before because, when you work in financial technology or anything where you're spreading financial education and success, you're doing social good. And I was lucky in my career to actually go on tour with like a lot of non-for-profits and learn about the social good community and hear about the phenomenal, work that so many people are doing in social good, that it inspired me when I got back up on my feet again. And, when I was thinking about how could I help others with my story. And, so I started thinking, well, I'm going to start, doing these little social good missions. I'm going to start, going out in my community, and so I started going down, first to like Muscle Beach. I had to get strong enough, right? I also had to get mentally quick enough again. I would have these great talks with my mentor, Geraldine Gillian, on our little canyon hikes with the rescue dogs and walking with Gumbo. And she'd talk to me about all kinds of things. I get certain things like, what does that mean? And I'm like, what is that word? And she'd coach me again, and then things would kind of snap back to me, and my memories started coming back to me, which was great, right? And it happened kind of in these like big like whiffs for certain types of things that I was doing. But in any case, once I finished up my time there with her, right before I left, I started training in martial arts. with like a sifu that I hired for kung fu and jujitsu because I wanted to have self-defense skills built up again for when I started going out into the field and having, doing some social good. So I did that, and I started then going to Muscle Beach in Venice back, in the 2021 and 2020, right? And when I was down there, I'd start training down there when they opened the parks up again, and it's just crazy to see kind of what had happened, right? Venice had one of the largest, homeless populations, and I started, I worked in like stuff with real estate in the past and real estate developers and communities, and not for profit. So, hey, this is right here. This is wow. I can't believe this is even happening, right? In our communities to the level that it did during 2020 and 2021, right? And so,
Tough time.
yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And when you see also just some of the mental health crisis that's happening out there, a lot of that's happening with nutritional deficiencies and other issues and services being cut off and stuff like that. So I just started going down there and training, and being in the community, and there are kids down there, and I remember seeing this young man, his name is Ramses, and his dad Yaz is out there, and he's a former, Air Force veteran, and he brings his kid out there to train, and there was this like heavy bag that was torn up, right? And but people would come out and hit on it, right? And so I was like, okay, a lot of things keep getting stolen out here, so I'm just gonna tape it, and see if the community can appreciate it, and so I taped it, right? And I started putting the, kind of colored different colors of tape around it so it'd be fun. And and people would be hitting it and working out on it more, right? And then, I put like a couple of things on, Instagram randomly, and then one day another bag showed up. Somebody put it up, right? Cool, and so then, you'd see these things happening where bags would come up and then they get stolen, right? Or somebody would take the hardware. So then I try to like go replace the hardware a bunch of times, right? To hang the bags again, because you'd see them on the ground. I'm like, get that bag up there, And and
This
so
is
anyway,
cool.
yeah, I mean, so there's just these great people in the parks, right? There's, lots of people that come out there of all kinds, and a lot of veterans were coming out there, right, working, and then I started, hearing just about a lot of veterans too, that were homeless out there, sleeping at the beach too. And so we'd sit out there and we'd be working out on these bags and talking about our traumas, and how we just keep moving. And so it was great. I was just out at the park like yesterday, and sure enough, somebody had knifed the bags, and we'd kept these bags up for a long time. One of the bags is gone now, so I was really mad about it. And I was like, "Come on, this is our community, I don't even live in Venice Beach, but I care." And so I got my tape. I put yellow tape on this one this time, because I'm like this, and then I start talking to the kids in the community, and I'm like, "Listen, you tell people that they need to respect these bags because this is for the community for people to get strong. All right?" And they're like, "You're right. Good point." I'm like, "We need to put up signage." And so in any case, I've been doing all kinds of fun adventures. I ended up joining the LA LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce to kind of get back in to my connections and try to make and help in the community. So that's just been so much fun. We've been doing things like at Sony Pictures and all over LA, and I was like in their parade, and stuff, kind of celebrating. So we've been doing, so it's been a busy time. And basically, what I got to is I did a bunch of different social good. I even went to Minneapolis like 3 times. And I
But
went to
but
Minneapolis.
I wanted to cut you here because I want to go a little bit back. So
Sure.
when you left where you were to California, so pretty much when you get to California, that's when your body's starting to feel better. So were you off all the medication because you left your team that was helping you back then because you went to California? So at this time you are alone in California and doing all these things, and that's what actually treat you to make you feel better as you are right now.
Yeah, so basically the big premise of my story is, my teams in Charlotte, I still continued to meet with them. I would fly to them, in 2020 eventually. I flew to them in October, but we were able to do telehealth, right, just for a 6-month check-in. But other than that, it was like, okay, I've got to do their lessons and I have to write down and measure how I feel. And for me, it did take me a long time to rebuild strength and to do things. And I went through other new treatments while I was here. And I also shared with them the results of those treatments in my 6-month checkups with them, also, so that they would know what I was doing. And so the big things, in general too, was that, it wasn't easy for me. I had to, go and get additional service help, right? And so some of that service help meant that I had, once, COVID allowed massage therapy again, by the way, because that sucked, because, when that got cut off, people like me got cut off of essential services, which made my condition actually not as good because I couldn't get to who I could get to, right? So I
Right.
had to have I had to have tools at home, which are great that I had bought some tools and found things that worked for me. But ultimately, what really helped also just me push the needle is I got to a certain point when I started, working out with the Sifu, I realized that I had certain limitations still, right? And so my muscles were still tight and I needed more flexibility. I still had to grow my muscles, like I was really thin, and so I had more work to do conditioning wise, and I did that work. And then also, I had a massage therapist with me twice a week who was really doing some
Wow.
unique therapies where she was actually doing heavy pressure with me. And that's unusual for a patient like me. But I said, look, I want to stretch out. I got to get through it. She was so sweet. Her name's Catherine from Thailand. Oh my God, she knew I was in so much pain and she knew what we were doing every week for 2 hours. She would literally, this is how sweet this woman is, right? She would literally make me a Thai meal and be like, here, you need to eat this. Like after, because she knew like how much
Oh, that's so
pain I was
sweet.
in, right? Like, come on, what an amazing like team, you know? But
Yeah.
she was awesome because like we could communicate with one another, right? And she'd be like, "Okay, how's your training going?" And I would pull things, right, or I would hurt other things again because I would still be too tight, right? And if you don't have flexibility, yeah, you pull it and it hurts,
Yeah.
So you've got to get more and more flexible. So the big thing for me, will always be in my story is one, being consistent, right, with those basics of what my doctors from Charlotte taught me, and then two, doing the new practices that my brother and I also found, right, and incorporating those, but then just listening to my body, right, and each week you just got to
Listen to your
push and
body.
push. And that's where, if you push through that pain, that's when I got to this level of strength, right? And my energy crisis, here's the interesting thing. Again, we did a little bit more trial and error in California. When we got to California, this is how crazy this is, right? Technology. Boy, do we need it sometimes. Have you ever heard of a oxygen reader, SpO2 reader?
Oh yeah.
The little thing they put on your finger usually, and it tells you a reading,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was really big during like COVID times, right? And stuff because people were having a hard time breathing. And so, oh, I need to see what my blood oxygen level is. Usually a nurse reads that for you sometimes. Well, I got my brother's like, read this. You still seem kind of strange. Like, let's read this and see if there's something else going on with you. Like, because you're waking up and I'm having these, I'd wake up and I feel like I was still suffocating a little bit when I was in California, right? And so when I do that, it turned out that I was like reading well below 95, which is not a healthy reading. I was actually between 85 and 95 multiple times, which is states potentially of hypoxia. So basically, I had not enough oxygen coming to me, okay? And this is just happening to me, right? So these are just things that I had to watch and see how I'd improve on between my pain levels, my energy, how I felt mood wise, right? To, new symptoms that would either appear or go away. And then also like how my brain fog, how I was recovering from that, right, at the same time. And so um, the great news is that the combinations of things that I did worked. And what I'm doing now as a next step is I'm actually going to be releasing a science journal with the more in-depth notes of exactly what we did for the medical community. I'm going to be focusing on releasing that to association leaders so that we can move the ball faster at the rheumatology and neurology and emergency departments and all over the place level faster. I decided to create a health council. And so I linked up with other amazing leaders that have already been out there doing stuff so that I could learn from them and say, hey, how can I help? And so I partner with some really cool people like Melissa Talwar from the Support Fibromyalgia Network. She's amazing. And the Limbs for Lupus team, Estella and Wanamata. So I've been able to just get tons of different feedback points from different groups now. And where I'm kind of headed to at this point is, I developed a collection of, 20 books at this point to be kind of teaching aids. And they're for different purposes. There are also milestones in my documentary to show that I've healed from brain fog. My degree is in creative writing. So it was kind of fun for me to do these little like exercises, right, of creating books. And so I created all these different books behind me. And there's different things here, but basically, the first when you think about it was The Life of Gumbo. And this was a children's series that I designed about Gumbo and I going across the country.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So we did this, and this is for kids and also for the disabled and for others, right, who want a little bit lighter on lessons about life and partnership and kind of fun stuff that we went through. So we end up on a ranch in Malibu. We're all over the place, having a good time.
But
And
you
that's
know,
what I work on.
one thing is that you have a lot of gut to do all these things and still in so much pain. Not everyone can do all these things.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I started to do while I was sick, right, was I took a lot of pictures. And I would look at pictures while I was sick. And I would do meditations. And just by doing these things, like taking a picture of my dog and like making a plan one day that, hey, I'm going to write a book with him and I, right? It gave me purpose, right? And then by doing, like neural exercises, right? By taking pictures and being grateful and looking at the detail, that was a really big thing for me because when you are in a lot of pain, you have to meditate and you have to go somewhere else sometimes, right? And there are ways that you can do that, in productive ways. And that's what I learned from teachers. And so I made, books and stuff around that. I even have like the ability to do live portfolio showings now and digital art shows because I took so much photography. And then, just in general, like when you think about kind of now, I was raised differently, so for me to create this way, I really do credit my family, and my teachers all along the way that have invested in me, my CEO, Mike, who did years ago, Tim Johnson, Tom, all these folks that cared about me, they made me kind of into this superhuman that wants to care and give back. And I do want to care and give back, and that's why I started the whole Social Good Warrior, magazine and kind of this big push right now. Because when you look at our country, we're in our world. I mean, it's been pretty wild, right?
It's a mess. Let's call it like that.
Right. And so it is what it is, right? We are where we are, and we can only learn from history and be better. And
Exactly.
my dad, he always taught me that. He loves to read, and he's like, if we're gonna look at anything, we're gonna figure out what we're gonna learn, and then we're gonna do something better. Cool? I'm
I
like, all
like him
right.
already.
Yeah, he's amazing.
But a question I have for you though, how did the
Sure.
thought of starting your own company come to you?
Yeah, well, what I realized with the businesses, I actually have multiple. So I have the media company so that I could tell my story and publish, right? And do the documentary series through that. But then I also help people. So I have a Buddytown Consulting, and that's the name of my consulting org. And so that's who I do the think tanks through, right? That I've been designing to help in our communities. And then also people still come to me like for help every week, asking, hey, could you consult on this or that? And there are various types of business topics because of my history and what I'm capable of doing. And then I have lots of cool network friends too that they're super smart. So like I am like, look, it might not be me, but hey, I know that person over there, and they might be
Can
able
you
to
help?
help you. Yeah,
I love
and I think
that.
that I mean, but isn't that's what we need in our communities, right? Networks.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly. So with Thomasino Media LC, so can you tell us more about that company and the services that you offer inside that company itself?
sure. So within Thomasino Media, I have basically the 20 books that are available on the different book sites like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and others. And the purpose of that is, like just for example, like the Social Good magazine, this is one of the publications. My purpose here is to really show content that changes people's minds and the way that we think right now. There has been so much negative propaganda and messaging and just bad things that have happened in our communities that purposefully in my rehabilitation, okay, I had to separate myself from lots of different inputs, right? And I had to purposefully just fill my mind with happy things, right? Because it was really hard. And guess what? I'm here. I made it. Like, why not other people?
Well,
And so that's really what my message is, and I have public speaking that I can do through this organization. I have 7 different tracks, and where people can hire me to do that kind of motivational speaker stuff. But then the big piece as well, which will be kind of the finale piece for the year, is the documentary series. And I'm just about to release technology to help patients through my Buddytown Consulting, and that's going to be kind of the end of my documentary series filming at this stage. And then I'm going to cut the episodes of that, and that's really going to be the big stuff for Thomasino Media. Like after that is the series coming out.
I am very curious. I'm a very curious girl, and I'm like little curious George. If you watch that TV show from a long time ago. So when are you gonna
Absolutely.
have that out? When is the series
Uh,
coming out?
Well, so right now where I'm at is it's just been great being here in Los Angeles. I've been networking, getting to know people, right? There's so many cool people here that can help, right? Also. And so I've been doing that, and then I'm just about to release the technology here, very short window of time, and once that happens, I'm literally cutting that series and then marketing it to major distributors. And then we'll see what they want to do with it from that point. But my goal would be to have it out before the end of the year. And if I could have it out sooner than that, like an earlier quarter, that would be amazing. But right now, I'm just seeing if I can pull some levers to accelerate that. So more to come.
All right then. I can't wait to watch it. So also something that you said that I like. Peace, love, health, prosperity. And that is the motto that you use with Bodytown Consultant. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so I think right now, when you look at the world again, right, we need a lot more peace, love, health, and prosperity in all of our communities. And those have really kind of been the words that always kind of resonated with me, throughout my career and when I think about my life. And, if you have to live by certain principles, why not do work that helps create those types of outcomes? And, we have a decision right now. Sometimes, with current events, it could be so overwhelming. And sometimes you just need a buddy or you just need to have that push, right? And I've had so many mentors and people push me and say, come on, KT, get back in the game again. And so, I think that everyone's kind of like that right now. I mean, everybody's been traumatized, but the great news is that we don't have to stay frozen in that state. We don't have to stay in that state. We can move towards peace and prosperity, and we can move towards growth. And the way that we do that is by starting to just say, look, hey, I need some help. Do you know anybody that knows anybody? Right? And that's step one. And it's just like any normal step one program. But I think we need that for business. And so that's what I'm doing with Buddytown. And I've got different, think tanks that are focused on like special topics like the health councils. So if we can do some things to change it at the local levels, that hopefully will encourage that.
Absolutely. And then you know what? Something you also said, it's all started at your own town. You know, that's how you actually can make a difference. When people think about president or mayor and these people, they're not going to do anything for you, really. You are, for me, the way I see it, I am the one who had to make a difference in my own small little community. Nobody else gonna do it. They focus on the big picture, which is when you focus on the big picture, there's not much you can do. But when you focus on the small town right there, I can make a huge difference, and I can take that, make it bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's what I love about your focus. It's not changing the entire world, but it's focusing on changing that community right here, and other people can take the same mentality and go out and make changes in their own community, which is that's what's making a huge difference in this world.
Exactly. And the more people that we get, doing social good on their own and these little acts, and then also just celebrating the people in their communities that do live good lives and mimicking them. That's the whole point of my Social Good magazine is I tell examples in there of others all over the country leading good lives because I think we need some more press about that, which is why I was super excited to be on your network and station today because wow, like what a great stuff that you're doing for the community too, lifting up others' voices. So I appreciate you, man.
Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness, I feel so old right now. I mean, she calling me ma'am.
Oh, I'm from the South, and my dad was in the military, so it's kind of a thing. It's a sign of
Oh,
respect.
I know, I love it, but right now I feel so serious. I'm missing all of the gray hair, so I need to get some more so I can feel more serious, you know? Yes, ma'am. So you are, you know, one thing, you are not a body of many, many people. And you have been, your body's, I guess what I'm trying to say is in your lowest time, you had a huge team that supports you, you know, from different type of ways, different type of group of people and things like that. And you take that and you turn it to something to be body for other people. So how does that been going for you to be able to take that experience and then giving it to other people?
So it's been pretty interesting. I was a sales teacher before, and also just, I would work with clients to teach them different things and to learn, right? And the number one thing I think is, if I can teach people to just, look inside, to stop for a minute, right, and start to become your own data scientist. Pay attention, journal. Be honest with yourself and spend time on yourself. It's that self-love, right? I think that we've been missing that in our communities. And we everybody's kind of like a computer. I mean, at least that's how my brain functions. And sometimes you have to, reset, right? Or turn it off for a minute and turn it back on, right?
Gone.
Close some of the windows, you know what I mean? And so, I think that the more that we have people that are willing to look inside, the more that we're going to have these positive community developments. And the folks that are suffering, we just need to keep on saying, look, it's okay to go and get help. And, like for example, here in Los Angeles, I mean, my God, I came from the East Coast, right? And I study all kinds of communities. They have so many services here. It is unbelievable how many services between the government, the not-for-profit. I mean, it's out of this world. So I'd love to see more people using that stuff, right? Getting into, and using some of these systems that exist, particularly in these communities where these benefits are paid for by tax dollars, right? Because you're basically saying that as a community, we have pride, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
willing, we're willing to pay, right, so that people can get access and be taken care of. So I'd love to see more people, using those benefits and just seeing people getting stronger again. Um,
Yeah.
I- you know, that would be awesome.
Yes.
So.
So with Body Town, how can people be a part of that?
Yeah, so I've launched a social good experiment through that, and it's on www.socialgoodexperiment.com. And basically, this is part of the technology launch that I'm doing, as well as a program that I'm doing around human behavior. And the design of it is based upon the things that I've actually did in my day to day to help improve my body and improve my life. Remember, I had brain fog. I didn't even know
Yes.
how to cook, and I had a hard time remembering to eat or do anything at times. So I created a frame to do that. And so number one, there's an early registration for anybody that wants to be a participant in that. And I'm doing basically a nationwide study around this. And then two, there are opportunities to volunteer for different campaigns that I'm doing within the social good experiment that relate to the health council. So there's different operational like roles and networking roles and connector type roles that are needed right now to try to reach out to people and get everybody, connected with education. And then the third role really is, there are some, folks that financially would like to invest or be a donor in certain types of programs. So they're able to contact me around some of those because I do have various think tank initiatives that I've been working on with the Health Council. And, right now, for example, I'm working on a special project with some veterans that I've learned about here locally. So more to come on that. But these are ways that if you want to get involved and you're looking for ways to do some social good that's very pointed and direct, this is a great way to do that and make impacts with people in different ways. Sometimes people have different, abilities to give back or to help, right? And it's always
Right.
whatever you're comfortable with and what your role is, right? So I'm kind of different, like I was a sales leader and a marketing leader, with sales and marketing stuff before. So for me, I like doing campaigns and programs. Other people are like, don't put me on camera, don't put a picture of me up there, and I'm like, cool, let's just collaborate and we'll talk about ideas, you know what I mean? So that's how I leave it open. People can get to me on that buddytown.com and also see about the social good experiment or the think tanks. And that's the ways that you can interact. And we could start by having a conversation, just learning about who you are first. And that's usually how I do it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Another question I have for you regarding that is you said for the experiment, people can also join. So if someone joined to be a part of the experiment, um, does that mean like you're going to be doing experiment in that person? Is that what it is? And that side of it?
So I basically named it that. That's the name of it, right? Of the behavioral study. And what I've been designing is an application that will track various components about behavior, kind of based on those things. And so a person can opt into that program, record their data, right, on a daily basis through this app that I've been designing, and be able to get to it in Google or in Apple. And once that happens, there's some other information that I'm bringing together that shows kind of local data that'll be pretty important. And so, as this program grows, my goal is to begin to show people certain insights that will allow them to make choices on, thinking about their life. And so I say it like that because I'm not a doctor, right? And I'm not a
Right.
healthcare professional. I'm not a licensed professional. But my message is always going to be, one, you got to look at what's happening inside. And so you got to start tracking different things about yourself. And then two, you've got to make sure you have your own health team. And that's kind of like different for different people for different reasons. There are different people that have different damage. I mean, I fell down 15 feet of stairs. I mean, I had to work with a massage therapist for so long, right? Because my tailbone was so messed up. I mean, I had to rebuild my pelvis. So, like, when you have things like that, my case is a little different than other people's, you know what I mean? Um,
Right.
so
But I
so that's
think
how I'm going to connect people, right? Yeah.
right. But I think the app is it's on the app you have out. It's important for almost anyone. Be able to understand your body will help you a lot, and anything that come up to you because sometimes we deal with a lot every day. We don't realize what's happening to us, even our emotion, how it's changed. The things that we eat, sometimes eat like some. I was eating strawberry the other day, and I start itching, and I see a bunch of bumps coming in my body. I'm like, that's strange. I never had that
Oh, yeah.
problem before. But like you said, if that's something I was monitoring all the time, perhaps I would have known that's a problem I already have. But the fact that I never really pay attention to it, I didn't know. So I think your apps will be very helpful to, so
Yeah.
just know what's going on with you as a human being.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because, here's a little tidbit. When I was a kid and I was sick, it turned out that my next door neighbor, she ends up having the same condition that I do now as an adult. And she was sick as a kid too. And it was
Wow.
interesting because there's different factors in her case where her condition changed in different environments. And so, we still keep in touch. Mary Jane's amazing. But we share notes because of these types of things. And this is why I think that, these patient communities are important, but it's also important now that we start to really look at these dollars. And look, I'm a data scientist, so I know how to spin up programs, right? I've done this. And we've got tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars going into all these research programs all over the country. Some of them are private funded, but most of them are taxpayer dollar funded. And I'm just going to ask this question. Where are the results at this stage? And that's really my passion with Buddytown, right? Because I'm always about getting results, right? And how do we create positive outcomes? Well, I still continue to see people suffering and dying, right, in these communities, people still having, for example, just one basic thing, nutritional deficiency, nutritional access. I mean, I think that's something that every person in humanity and definitely in America should agree on, that we can get better nutritional access and keep those supply chain networks open so that the cost of food stays low for everybody, but it's quality. I'm not gonna pay top dollar, or I'm not gonna even pay for cheap food. I don't want the cheap food. The cheap food's making us sick. We need the better food, the better quality. And that's why I get passionate about Buddytown, because I think these are the things that we could start to fix. And these are the types of issues, like, for example, with my little think tanks, right, that I set up, that I get to like interact with these brilliant minds, right, and say, well, what could we do? And then, people are connected. And so, we'll see what happens for the rest of 2022. But I'm a serial networker, so I'm going to stay pretty optimistic. I mean, I helped build one of the largest networks in the country for financial technology. I mean, we have 800,000 plus with us. So
Wow.
if we could do that, why couldn't we fix nutrition in our local communities? I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But you are a champion for gender diversity. How do you work for that cause?
Yeah, so I work on the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce volunteer committees, and I love it because it's all about diversity and inclusion. And one of the things that I've, learned in my journey, and you'll see this in my documentary series, I actually do a whole thing about self-expression and hair. I literally cut my hair like a bunch of different ways purposefully. And then one time I had to have it short because I was doing a procedure on it, right? And I wanted to see finally where all the stuff was happening, on the needles. But anyway, I cut my hair all kinds of different ways. And then, I had to have a different kind of voice sometimes. So, it's always fascinating to me, like people's perceptions of people, right? And what I think about, in my world is one, I want people just like, what Martin Luther King always kind of hoped for his children, right? To, always say, look, I wish people could judge me by the content of my character versus the color of my skin. And that's always kind of stuck with me because I was disabled also, like, like kind of having these headaches all the time as a kid. But I was, I could think, you know what I mean? And, and I was so lucky because I had people in my career that knew that about me too. So they like, okay, we know you got headaches. Like, we get it. You know what I mean? So they knew that sometimes my expressions, right, weren't always, really what I was feeling, right? I was just having like a
Right.
sharp pain. But so what I loved about that was my business community listened to me. They still listen to the content of my message, right? And even when I was suffering, right, in some different ways. And so I think that in our world, if more people, could communicate, how they feel through whatever way that looks, right? And isn't it at the end of the day, dress up? I mean, I like to dress up the way I like to dress up. I like
Dressed
to put
up,
makeup.
yeah.
I like to put a hat on some days. Some days I like jewelry, some days I don't. You know what? This shirt, I used to like sleeves and then I started getting muscles, so now I've been cutting the sleeves off all my shirts, right? Because I'm like, you know what? I want to show, yeah, like and they don't fit in there anyway, but I don't want to waste the shirt because I don't want to be a waster. So I say self-expression is people's own, right? And oh man, like, for me, like losing my memory and parts of me and giving away so much of me at times, and just trying to make it through. Um, you know, that was kind of just the first thing is like, can I just feel okay? And then after that, like when I started feeling okay and I started getting stronger, I actually started thinking about my clothes again, you know what I mean? And other things again. And so now I've kind of been in that fun, self-expression phase again, which has been good because my mind isn't occupied by fight or flight, right, with taking care of my physical condition, you know what I mean? I can do things in the creative side differently, right? So
Exactly.
so yeah, I say be you, be whoever you want to be, and that's the thing I love about Los Angeles being here. It's just like so many different kinds of people, and a lot of people though that really just love fashion and fashion and makeup.
Oh my goodness. So where can people get your books?
So they're available now, and they're available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. They're also available on international markets. So you can get them in digital or you can get them in paper. Some of them are in hard copy, depending on the style. But yeah, I always tell people just, depending upon, kind of where you're at in your journey, I created a collection that allows you to kind of jump in. There's light content and then there's heavy content, right? And so just read, the description. But there's lessons in all of them. And my intention in doing these fun, different kinds of writing styles also was, um, I don't want to be like a traditional writer either. You know, what happened to me wasn't traditional, right? And so you'll notice that in some of the styles of how I wrote because there's like moments where I capture it kind of like in diary style, but then I have like kind of like teaching in the back, like in an appendix of like, all right, I know you just read this, but here's what you need to take out of it because here's the keys, right? Because it's a lot, when you take in
Yeah.
anybody's human experience. But yeah, like I said, these things are available on Amazon and they're for different kinds of age groups too. But I really hope, like in particular, to get through to our teens and to the kids that are out there, because when I, started getting sick was when I was younger. And if I could have known some of the things that I know now about how the human body operates and the things that were bothering me that made me feel odd, right, or different, or like an outcast sometimes, if I would have understood that, right, what were those catalysts and inputs that made me like that? Man, who knows where I'd be today, but
Big
that,
difference.
yeah. But yeah, so I hope to get through to those to that generation in particular, because there's so much going on right now in our country, and again, there's so many good things happening too, and we could get swept up by all the negativity and the bad stories, but I think it's time for us to raise the vibration and I was in Minneapolis as an observer like 3 times in 2021, trying to understand what was happening there on the ground. And I would study these different groups, these teen activists, and I would hear them, in the streets and their stories, and it moved me. And I'm just wondering, like, what could we do differently, right? And I went there and I, met with the real estate owners and a whole bunch of people around and different associations and all kinds of people. And, I think that we can, I think that we can do better. in our
That's
country.
for sure.
And I think that what happened was horrific. And I think that it's time now that we invest in those communities in Minneapolis. I went there. I did not see a lot of investment at that time, right? Which is going to be in some of my documentary series. But no matter what, in our communities, our children are suffering and they've experienced a lot of trauma. And, there's things that we can be doing to help them kind of get into a positive track, right? And make sure that they stay um, out of the stress. I mean,
Yes.
my main reason for going there was because I was so worried about that community getting fibromyalgia. Now you're probably wondering why would I worry about that, right? Like that.
Yeah. Why?
Well, here's the interesting thing about my condition and the condition that tens of millions have, 10 plus million have too. Um, Fibromyalgia has been noted to be caused by different reasons because it can happen to anybody. And so fibromyalgia very commonly happens first amongst the veterans population and other first responders and others because of the trauma and the PTSD that they go through. And so they begin to experience the nervous system pain, all the other types of things, the headaches, the mood disturbances, lots of different pieces of that. And that comes from heavy trauma, right? Over and over, and being in high stress levels. It also happens because of nutritional deficiencies. It also can happen because of pollution and certain levels of pollution and certain types. So, and then a combination of those impacts. And for some people like me, right, it could make it worse if you have an accident. So remember, I always had migraines, so they always suspected that I had fibromyalgia. They just didn't know what to name it at the time, right? And so, I had an accident and that just compounded me, right? In a different way. And so what my purpose of, I did a press release and I also went to Minneapolis those times was also to spread that awareness about this condition because, if you look at these, children, for example, teens that were in the streets and every day, you could see that trauma on their face, right? And the upset. I mean,
That's
I don't know
true.
about you, but I just want to grab them and hold them, but I mean, I can't, but I want, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because you're like, get out, get them out of the street. They're hurting their bodies, right? And can we find better ways, right, for everyone in this community, right, to have civil reform and civil compromise, right? That's where I started looking at a lot of the association leaders, and you'll hear that in my messaging and my books as well. That we've got to start trusting our associations. I've been on tour with a number of them at points, so I've been able to participate in advocacy work and those types of agendas. So I'd love to see our communities starting to shift these civil disputes that we're having in our country right now towards these association leaders that have already, for many, often for decades, have already been unifying, going to DC, putting together clear messaging, with compromise, right? I'd like to see us lift up those leaders across this country, and you'll learn more about that in my work, right, in the documentary series. That's my focus, right? If I can get those association, leaders' voices lifted up, I still believe in, having our experts in society. That's who helped me, my specialist, and then also my chief nerd, my brother. I call him that. Um,
Yeah.
but we need that type of knowledge, right? And those people that are committed to finding solutions like that. But it doesn't have to be everybody. And again, there's different ways to contribute, just kind of like my programs, right? If people want to help me. So I just, I live my values. We learned that at Avid Exchange. It was always a big thing for us to, do that. And I think we can do a lot more great things in our communities at this stage. But we just need to get off that negativity, raise that vibration up, and just bring the positivity again. That's what I see.
That's exactly how I see it too. But I have to say, you had great support people behind you, from your dad to your brother, and all these people your dad also already knew that can actually help you out. And all I can say is I'm grateful you didn't give up. You actually, everything that happened to you, you turn it to positive to be able to help other people. And that's what we need more from other people to do, especially right now, the way that the world is up and down. We need people like you to just like bring that positive back, so that we don't have to be in the negative side.
That's the truth. When you look at our communities today, right? I mean, how could you not get depressed if you open up your news box sometimes? Or
I
I had to
don't.
turn I had to turn off my notifications because I'm like, no, get out of my head. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to think positive today and intentional, right? And protect
Yeah.
my 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 zone today because I don't need to engage in that every day. And I hope more people will do that and choose positive inputs, especially as we go into the election season. Lots of
Oh
people like to
yeah.
buy ad dollars and get bonkers with their negative campaigns sometimes. And, the way I say to people is this, right? And you'll hear me say this a lot. It's like, look, I'm not the right or the left. I'm actually an American, and more than anything, I'm a humanitarian. Like, come on, like enough's enough. Can we just talk about what works and can we
Yeah.
get leadership in that wants to compromise, period? Because if you're not compromising, at least in the business world, you get fired. And because you can't get results. And I don't know about you, but the results right now in our country have been very challenging for many, many years. Okay, many, many years.
You,
But
what
part of
I
it,
what I was gonna
yeah.
say, what I like the most about it is you see them asking for money for everything, but what I never seen coming back is I did this and that's what I got. I never really seen that part. It's like, can you donate money to this? Yeah, sure. Are you gonna give me this? Yeah, we get back to you in a few years. A few years pass, you never see anything. So what happened to my money?
Well, it's that results conversation, right, that needs to happen, and it's that visibility to our program spend, right? Budgets. This is what I used to help with all over the country, hundreds and hundreds of projects with, was financial spend and being able to look at how you achieve your goals. And part of that is, depending on how complex it is, what you're building, right? Sometimes you need different systems and tools, right, to be able to achieve. But then also, sometimes you just need the right kind of talent. And you know what's awesome about our country? We got a lot of smart people here. Holy crap,
Yes, we
there are
do.
so many smart people, right?
We do. And you know what's funny about it? A lot of the smart people we have is the people we never heard of.
Well, a lot of people fly under the radar right now. And so when you think about, the change in our media, right, and how we focus our folks too on what's important in our attention, again, this comes back to why, magazines like yours and others, are so important because we're lifting up positive examples.
Well, I guess next, what is the advice that you have for, let me change the name for that one, for budding entrepreneurs?
Oh, well, what I'd say is this. I mean, part of my experiment, right, in general for myself and my milestones was starting to just create different kinds of products and, really going through the process of writing different plans and doing that over and over again. I did that because I was rebuilding my skill sets. Just from an entrepreneur, perspective, look, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna do things where your brain hurts because you're learning, new skills. The way that I've been able to get ahead is, I had to just rebuild all these skills, right? Again, and that's been part of my documentary series, like building websites, figuring out, my taxes, all kinds of different things. And the great news is, and just like with my regular business career, as I was rebuilding again, like I use services and others to help me. So I hire professional accountants to help me, right? I use
Well,
technology that helps me run my businesses. That's financial technology that's great for my two businesses. So They coach me, we talk, we have great, conversations. So, even me who's a professional, right, in various things, and I coach people, I still have professional coaches too at times, right? And that's the secret of my success is having, coaches and networks and mentors, but also then really spending the time to research the right tools that give me efficiency. Use those tools and those services so that you never give up, right? And that's really the thing for an entrepreneur to find success is finding those toolkits early and often. You may not be the best website developer. I like doing that stuff because I used to design things like that, mock-ups for my old teams, right? Hire somebody, but put the money aside and make a budget and think about these things before you start your business, right? And so just do that work of starting to build plans and then also networking so that you can learn from lots of people too about things that you may need to consider for your plan, right? And that's why chambers of commerce and other types of associations like Institute of Real Estate Management, depending on if you're like a specialized person, some of those things are great for professionals to get going and also good ways to get business too. So that's what I recommend with like kind of budding entrepreneurs and also just be ready to fail at times and then get back up because it happens. People hang up on you. They tell you your products are stupid. I mean, people told me that they didn't like my book cover designs, and oh, well, I just did this from brain fog, but cool. So I mean, but anyway, but so I mean, like, look, life happens is what my point is, and people are gonna like you or not like you. There are people that like me and people that don't like me for whatever reason. I don't care. I have my own mission, and if I'm doing good in the community, and I'm not hurting anybody, then I'm gonna keep going, And I'm also gonna know just because of the way that I've grown up, being, in the LGBTQ, and then also at times having, different difficulties, you know people are just, you know, not everybody ever understands everybody all the time, and it is what it is. And you know what? There's plenty of people that are cool also in community
Yes.
that are awesome, and whatever. I'll find those people, and we'll hang out and have a good time, and or we'll create business opportunities, right? I mean, because there's different things, and I say, instead of like getting hung up on the people that are jerks all the time, it's like you're not going to take my energy from me, man. I work for my energy. Like, whew, I had to figure out how to recharge my body again and fix my cells. Like, nope, people don't take my energy from me anymore. Nope, you know what I mean? So not unless I want them to, but yeah. So hopefully that helps.
I think that's what you said is very important. It's okay because people are not going to like everything you do, and that's fine. There's people that don't like my skin color. There's people that don't like the way I speak. There's people that don't like the fact that I support women. There's people just don't like me in general. And you know what? Screw you. I'm okay with that.
That's right, because everybody, everybody's a product of their own inputs. And the thing that I realize in my case and just in life, right? Everybody suffers. Everybody can suffer. So it's like, look, whatever, you're in your own little head trip today. Cool. Just don't hurt me and get away from me right now. I'm gonna be over here dancing around with my shirtless sleeves and having a good time. My cut off sleeve.
Just live,
So
you have one life to live. Just live it the way you want to live it, and that's what's make you happy. Go for it. And that's all I always tell people: go for what's make you happy. And the people that will support you will just support you no matter what. It doesn't matter really. They will just be there for you when you need them.
so true, and that's how my community has been. There's just been so many that have wrapped their arms around me in different ways, sending me love and notes or and other things, and it's been a hard time, and it was hard to leave what I had to leave at that time. But so, if I think that if people can realize that our greatest ability is our ability to transform, then I think, with self-discipline, rigor, and discipline and accountability, that we can change the country. And I think with a lot of self-love, people are going to feel a lot better. And I think everybody wants to feel better right now in the world. And I don't know, that's what I'm about, and that's what my campaigns are about for social good. And if you all can join me with just in your own communities being great examples of people that are willing to do good things, I think we could change this game in the country and calm things down and kind of go back to a time where it's not like it was at all, but it's like a new time. So when we think about the future and the world and what we're facing right now, my message is all about peace, love, health, and prosperity. And if people can begin to look inside for actions with self-love like I did, I think we could get some really positive outcomes in this country. And that's what my message is about, is being able to connect with community, but then also doing the work. And I had to have that discipline, rigor, and accountability to get my body back to where it needed to be after all these unexpected events and injuries. But I did, and I'm coming back on the scene again with my community behind me. They know that I love to help fix problems and help people find success. So I'm going to do that again in the ways that I used to, but also in new ways now within, the healthcare community and within the chronically ill, by really just trying to spread this awareness. And, you can take action with me, by doing acts in your own community for social good. There's plenty of people that inspire me all the time. And so I hope that others will take action this year in 2022 to, be civil, to find ways to be positive in their community, and also to care about the disabled and the chronically ill and the others, and to not forget them, because they have really been suffering a lot, and there's a lot of different things that have happened to them with the cutoff of services. So we can never forget them. And my case shows that with lots of inputs and investments and changes, that I could get healthy. So why not everybody else try to reduce their suffering in some way? And that's the world I'm trying to help create right now in better ways. And it exists already in lots of pockets, but we just need more of it around America. And I think that's the new economy. That's where we're going to get our growth back again, is when, we start, investing again in some of these business types and models that really do change the game for our people and make people stronger and empowered, right? Empowerment is key. So that's why I won.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Kristen. You know when you said together, it's we are always stronger together. And if we put all the BSs we have behind and then together, we'll be stronger and we'll make a bigger impact in this world.
Absolutely. And we've got to do it here first in the United States, but once we start to do it here in our own communities, just like before, it will spread to, internationally. And the international world needs us too right now. There's a lot of suffering there, but we've got to clean up our own house first. And I think we could do that in the coming years.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. I appreciate you uh, giving me that opportunity to talk to you. I love your story and I love how you take that positive and then build something out of it. And I'm grateful to know you, to be a part of your circle.
Oh, well, thank you so much again for this amazing opportunity and to be featured, in your magazine. Such a great honor. And again, keep doing what you're doing, lifting others up. Again, these positive stories, and, the world needs more of this. So thank you again for this great opportunity, and keep doing the social good you're doing too.
What a great conversation with Kristen. Kristen went through a lot of pain to get where she is today, but she didn't let that stop her from helping others or accomplish her goals. She is passionate about helping others by creating positive outcomes that can support their journey through difficult times. Thank you, Kristen, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode with Kristen. To learn more about Kristen and her companies, visit www.thomasinomedia.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.